Thanks, Paul. Good morning, and welcome to Justice Works. It's so great to be with all of you here today. I think Congressman Tonko pretty much covered it all, so I'm going to cut my remarks a little shorter because I know we're anxious to get to the workshops. First, I just want to say, this is our second Justice Works conference, and last year at the first conference, I gave a little bit of a longer talk about the state of the progressive movement, where we stood politically in the middle of 2011. After the Tea Party-dominated elections had just taken place in 2010. And I talked then about the need to shift the debate and the narrative away from austerity, tax caps, and tax cuts to a narrative about jobs and economic inequality. I also talked about the need for new, creative approaches to organizing with a diversity of tactics and strategies. So here we are, a little over a year later, and I looked back at my speech from last year, and I thought it was kind of interesting in some ways how right I was, but also yet how little I actually knew of what was about to happen. And a lot has changed, and some things unfortunately haven't changed. And although some things are sadly worse, though, our overall political framework has begun to shift back our way since then, a year ago. And I think we all know that Occupy Wall Street was a key force in making that happen. Occupy changed the, right. Occupy changed the debate last fall and really did begin to shift the rhetoric and the focus to the 99% in ways that I never expected, and using tactics and strategies that I never imagined. In shifting that mainstream, not just our progressive narrative, but in shifting that mainstream narrative away from austerity and tax cuts to the greed of the 1%, and the need to replace economic inequality with an economy that works for the 99%, we're kind of, I think, back in the right conversation and in the right political battle. However, as Paul started to say at the end, despite that progress, it's no exaggeration to say that our democracy continues to be hijacked by CEO campaign contributors who use their money to change the outcomes of our elections and to win control over the policy decisions made every day by our government. The wide and growing inequality in our state and our country is no accident. The 1% have systematically used their influence and their money to buy policies supporting deregulation, union busting, lower wages, voter suppression, and more, lessening the power of working people. At the same time, the right continues to use racism to divide the 99% so they can win their agenda. Their powerful combination of big money and bigotry has allowed them to increase the wealth of the 1% at the expense of the rest of us. So in this kind of climate, our only hope of reclaiming our democracy and our economic future is through building grassroots political power to challenge the influence of big money. And I think Occupy showed us that. And we hope now that this Justice Works conference brings us together to jointly build that political power in New York, one door at a time, block by block, and through strengthening and combining the power of all of our organizations here together. For some of us, we build that power through labor and community organizing. And I want to say that we're really glad to actually have a couple of new partners here today that weren't here at Justice Works last year. The New York State Nurses Association, you guys want to wave? They're here in force, and we're really glad to have new allies to work with. And I don't know if they're here yet, but the TWU, Transit Workers Union, also have a delegation here with us this weekend. We're really excited to be working with them. And I'm sure we still miss some, but we'll keep adding groups as you come. So some of us, we work through to build that power through labor and community organizing, and also nonpartisan civic engagement. And for many of us, we also build progressive power through direct electoral work through the Working Families Party. And all of those strategies are necessary, as are all the strategies that none of us have thought of yet, because the power we're fighting against is strong. But no matter how good we get at grassroots organizing and mobilization, or even at the electoral work, we are going to keep losing unless we change the rules of the game so that they're no longer rigged against us. And that's why I want to take a moment to say that Citizen Action and the Public Policy and Education Fund are making it a top priority this year to reduce the power of big money in elections. We all know how bad it is, and we're seeing how much worse it's getting, but as someone who spends a lot of time at the Capitol here in Albany, you even, as bad as you think it is, it's actually worse. And it's just sad to say, but it's true. And I just remember one day last spring when I was lobbying at the Capitol for a day, mostly actually on campaign finance reform. But my first meeting of the day, I spoke to a legislator who's normally on our side, viewed as a progressive, but who was supporting a bill that was very much alive at that time to prohibit the state from regulating voice over internet, removing any possibility of any consumer protection as our phone system shifts from landlines to the internet. And why was that bill even introduced? Why would we even consider it? It was Verizon and Time Warner money. And Verizon and Time Warner money had really bought up the votes of a large portion of the legislature at that point. And they finally lost, actually, this time only because of the power of CWA and WFP and some friends in the assembly. But it was a pretty close call. So we can beat them, but they're sort of always in there with their money. And at that same day, after a lot of frustrating lobbying meetings where the power of money to buy legislation was just very evident, I ended the day with a meeting with a potential candidate for state senate who was coming to talk to me about running, someone who really shared our agenda and our values. But my first question to this candidate was not, what do you stand for? It was, how much can you raise? Because I knew if she couldn't say hundreds of thousands of dollars, she had no chance. And that's the system that we're stuck in right now that we have got to change. So we've got to change it so that candidates can run and win by raising funds from small donations and getting public matching funds like the campaign finance system we have in New York City. And we're going to talk more about this tomorrow, about a fair election system and the ways in which we can make big contributions matter less, giving power back to us, the 99%, instead of leaving our elections in the hands of the 1%. Because until we reduce the impact of big money on elections, this isn't just like a reform idea, because until we reduce the power of money, we can't win on economic justice or racial justice. Whether you work on educational justice or healthcare, whether your focus is public transportation or criminal justice or the environment, whether you're struggling for gender equality or immigrant rights or voting rights, all of these battles are only going to be won in the long run and in a big way if we have a democracy that gives voice to the 99% and represents us, and a progressive movement that builds power for the 99%. So throughout this weekend, with the plenaries, keynotes, and workshops, we're going to have a chance to share ideas, learn more about working for justice and winning justice, and you'll have an opportunity to learn about many different current issue campaigns as well, some of which have, despite this climate, have had some amazing successes in the past year. And I want to just flag that at the end of the conference, we're holding 2 campaign strategy sessions, both at 2 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. They're on your program. One on winning a fair economy and one on winning fair elections. These 2 issues, of course, cut across and connect many of the other things we all work on and are very connected to each other. So please be sure to join one of those 2 sessions on Sunday. Don't leave early. Stick it out. This is the end point of the conference is where we really bring it home to some very concrete next steps in the short term to develop effective campaign plans so that we can really take back our democracy and our economy. So with that, I just really want to thank you all for coming and being part of Justice Works. We hope that the conference helps you learn, share, and network with allies from all across the state. Please take the time to meet people you've never met and never talked to before. We hope you get some new ideas and some inspiration, and you offer some new ideas and inspiration to others. And we hope that this helps us all come together to build a powerful movement for justice. Thank you.